my very first interview today as part of Old School Lane and as part of Hey, Forget About It Productions. I am Kevin, and today I have a very, very special guest. As I said, I am a huge fan of his YouTube channel, The Ghosts of Carmel Maine. Um, I would like you all to meet Mr. Burris. Mr. Burris has documented the hauntings in his own home called the Landing House on his YouTube channel, The Ghosts of Carmel, Maine. Disembodied voices, shadowy figures standing right in front of him, and even a shadowy demonic creature tiptoeing in the basement. Mr. Burris' footage from videos to pictures has become one of the most profound paranormal discoveries ever caught or seen by the naked eye since the photo of the ghost of the brown lady in Raynham Hall in 1936. Paranormal investigators and psychics who have spoken to Mr. Burris both on the phone and visited the Lamb House are lost for words once they see the footage Mr. Burris has caught or experienced the incredible paranormal activity for themselves. It is without a doubt that the Lamb House, built in the 1800s, is the epitome of paranormal activity. Mr. Burris doesn't look for fame or attention. Instead, Mr. Burris desperately try to understand the spirits who once walked the earth and even in his home. Mr. Burris goes above and beyond doing research on who these spirits are that try to cry for help to him. He bravely uploads the videos on his channel as much as he can as the paranormal experience become more intense and even frightening. Mr. Burris, thank you so much for coming on to my podcast and for my interview. I am so delighted to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me on, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So, my first question for you is, I've seen a good handful of your videos, and while filming them, I mean, they're right there, they're in real time.
Mhm.
And, your reactions are very authentic. And even for someone like me watching them, my mouth is just in awe. I'm in shock. But while filming, has there ever been a time when doing an investigation that it became so overwhelming that you said, look, I have to stop this. I need to take a breather because
Oh,
this
yeah,
is too much.
definitely. I mean, that happens quite a bit. Uh,
Really?
and
Hmm.
what's strange is, a lot of the stuff you capture, you don't realize you capture it in real time.
Hmm.
I mean, you do hear the disembodied voices, you see things, you feel things, you experience physical sensations during the investigation.
Hmm.
But what's really mind-boggling is when you go over the recordings,
Hmm.
there is a lot more going on than what you realize, and that's the shocking part.
Yeah. Yeah, what you have captured is incredible. I mean, when you go online and you look at paranormal videos and photos, I mean, it is nothing compared to what you have captured, sir. I mean, this is just, it's insane. It really
Yeah,
is.
what's strange about all of this?
Hmm.
You know, before I picked up the camera and started doing these recordings, I mean, as you know, I didn't believe in the paranormal. I
Hmm.
wasn't into the paranormal. I mean, I've never watched paranormal shows. It was just something I wasn't into. But, that
Right.
wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah.
So when I was encountering this activity and, the things that I saw with my own eyes and the things that was going on, I thought that was perfectly normal
Right. Wow.
because I didn't know anything else. I didn't have any experience about people that claimed they lived in haunted places. I mean, I didn't know anything about it. So what really blew me away with these encounters is once I started watching other paranormal shows and looking into what other people's experienced,
Hmm.
it was frightening. It was
Hmm.
frightening knowing what I was encountering was
Hmm.
for you.
Wow. And I just want to point out too that, and I don't, and I mean this sincerely, like I consider you like a hero almost because when you're what you're going through is it's incredible. And for you to muster the courage, even while you're doing your investigation, when you like there was the video I remember of the shadow figure standing right in front of you in your bedroom, and that was a genuine shock.
Yeah,
That you were scared.
yeah.
I got scared too, and I'm watching it. but then you took a pause, you re-record, you went back, and to me that's brave. I give you a lot of credit for what you're going through. And I know I didn't say this in the introduction, but yeah, I consider you a real hero for all the stuff that you're going through, and yet still staying strong and saying, okay, I'm going to get through this. you know
Yeah.
Really,
I
that's
appreciate
incredible.
that. I don't feel like a hero, but you
Well,
know, but
it's just, yeah, just seeing that stuff and experiencing in your own home. And that goes into my next question. Is it difficult to separate your personal life from your paranormal investigation life? Like, you have a family, you work, but like, is it hard for, like, when the spirits try to communicate you when you're trying to live a normal life? Is it hard?
well, living in this house, it's not really a normal life.
Mm,
There's activity going on constantly. I mean, sometimes it's worse than others,
yeah.
and sometimes, for the most part, while living in this house, you can't really have a normal life.
Yeah. I mean, when it's a haunted house, I mean, it's difficult. It really is. And do the spirits of the Lamb House, do they overstep their boundaries? My next question is, when they try to communicate with you and you're trying to live, and I know you said it's like a normal, not a normal life, but say you get up in the morning, you go into the bathroom to get ready for your day, or you're watching a football game right in the middle of a game, or even like you're going to bed. I mean, there's no, like, hey, don't do this, or hey, I'm doing this. We are the spirits aware that, hey, this, I'm doing something private, or this is my life right now. Can you just, like,
Yeah, I think some of the spirits respect, our privacy, but then there's other spirits that don't. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just going to act up either way.
Wow. And that's the most difficult time, of course, is when they don't respect the boundaries.
Yeah.
You were saying, like, earlier before, like, it's a frightening experience, and I can only imagine. Um, And have you ever thought what your life would be like if the Lamb House wasn't haunted? Like, say you didn't have all of this going on. Have you ever thought, what would my life be like if I didn't have these ghost encounters?
Well, I can only imagine it'd be like it was
Yeah.
before I encountered them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a life-changing experience encountering these
Yeah.
um, spirits and encountering this activity. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely life-changing, but I was just telling my son just an hour ago before we got on this. My son's sitting right here.
Mm-hmm.
I told him that. I said, Michael, look, I'm really getting tired of doing paranormal investigations.
Yeah.
I said it's troubling, and you have your moments that you just get tired of it. You just want to get away from it all, do something different, and just walk away. But
Totally.
unfortunately, if you get so deep into it
Yeah.
and there ends up being spirit attachments
Yeah.
to you, it's not as easy to walk away from as it might sound.
Right. Yeah. It sounds pretty difficult.
You kind of don't know what to do with the situation or how to deal with it from there.
Right. Right. And I remember you did a video when you were by yourself at the Lamb House, and that was pretty frightening. I remember watching that, and I was like, wow, that's just
Oh
insane.
yeah, 72 hours alone in that
Yeah.
house. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Never again will I stay in this house that long by myself.
I and I couldn't believe it too. I was just like, wow. That's why, again, not to make you feel uncomfortable. That's why I'm like, I admire this guy for doing that, because that some people wouldn't even be able to stay an hour or a minute, and you stood 72 hours. That's crazy. So I have a question that I wanted to ask you. You have encountered a lot of spirits at the Lamb House. There was one spirit in particular, and I watched the videos on it, and I don't know if you remember it. It looked like a spirit in a plaid shirt. It was in your bedroom. He was by the window, and he sort
Mhm.
of like clapped and disappeared. With that, I'm being honest, that one really struck me because I was like, that is just crazy. And that was, again, authentic. Do you know who that spirit was? Or I remember you did a video, but if you can just tell the viewers a little bit about that, because that one pretty much stuck on all the videos you've done.
Yeah, I open up the bedroom door, and there looks like a man just standing there by the window. And my first thought was, who broke into the house?
Yeah,
You know,
really?
why are they in my bedroom?
Yeah.
And then I noticed the head.
Yeah.
It was huge, and it was very strange looking. It almost looked like an alien.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, I mean, it leaped, and when it leaped, I jumped.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought it was coming after me,
Yeah.
but after it leaped, I backed out of the room, got the heck out of there. But then I noticed it wasn't even in there anymore,
Right.
and it dawned on me like this was a spirit. This was an apparition.
Mm-hmm.
But in the moment while it's going on, I mean, you don't know what to think in the moment. In that
Mm-hmm.
split second, you have no idea what to think. You have no idea. Do I stand there with the camera and interview the guy like some news reporter, or do I run like hell? You know, I
Right.
mean, you don't know what to do in a
Exactly.
situation like that.
And it's interesting you said that because I remember in one of the videos, a viewer had asked you a question, like, why don't you stay there and like stay there long enough and like capture it more? And you said it perfectly. It's like, well, what do you do? Your mind is racing. There's
Yeah.
how can you stand there? Like, how can I like do I talk to him? Do I try to communicate? Do I get the heck out of there? It's like I fear for my life, my family's life. There's just so many things going on. It's just that one was just intense. I mean, you have a lot of intense videos, but that when I first saw that, I was like, "Whoa, this looked like a guy in a plaid shirt."
Yeah. Have you ever come across, as a kid or as an adult, you come across a very, very vicious dog that's not on a leash and not
Oh
behind a
yeah,
fence, and it's sitting there glaring you down. Its tail's not wagging, it's showing its teeth.
yep.
That feeling you get, that's
Hmm.
what it feels like. All
Really?
right. Is this dog going to attack me? Is this dog going to run off? I mean, your instinct, your quick human instinct is to run, that
Right.
you're in danger. All right. And standing there trying to interview an apparition, I mean, there's just no way anybody in their right mind that experienced this firsthand is going to sit there and try to get captures of something that you have no idea what it is.
Exactly. Exactly. I just you just don't know what to do. For me, I wanted to share this real quick. I actually went to I don't know if you ever heard of it, the Shanley Hotel in Napanogue, New York, that is haunted. And that was my first paranormal encounter. I was with somebody, we went on a road trip, and for me, when I went into that house, it felt like that. I felt like like somebody was watching me, and I was like looking around. I didn't know my mind was racing. So I mean, like I could understand, like, what do you do in a situation like that? And it feels like that rapid dog feeling, like, oh my God, is it going to attack me? I'm like, what do I
There,
Um, so my next question is, so one of the most prominent spirits at the Lamb House is Abby. And if my question is, if you can, without the aid of a spirit box, if you could see Abby and talk to Abby just like a regular, because I know you try to communicate with her and she cries for help, and you desperately try, you want to help them. Without the spirit box, if she was standing right, what would you say to her if you can just talk to her without that aid of the spirit box?
well, I think the first thing I would say is demand her to identify what kind of spirit she is,
Absolutely.
and see if I can get an answer to that first, because you know I have no doubt I encountered a child spirit by the name of Abby,
Hmm.
but the real Abby, the real child spirit, she never asked for help.
Right.
She
Right.
never acted like she was in distress. She was
Right.
just more of a child that had information.
Oh,
And
good.
she was wanting to know where Molly is on top of all of this.
Right.
But after Abby, I told Abby where Molly was at. Molly was
Hmm.
actually in another location here in Carmel.
Right.
After an investigation, we learned where Molly was, and Molly was another child. And after that, the child voice that kind of sounded like Abby was crying out for help and saying some really strange things. And I'm like,
Mm.
this can't be Abby. There's
No.
no way this is Abby.
Right.
And I asked the other spirits to identify what this child is, and they did say it's a demon.
That's what I was gonna go ask you was is like when you encounter these evil spirits, these demons, and I know like the reaction speaks for itself on the video. Like what's the mind process like when you see these when these evil spirits come across, even in your own home?
Well, one of the things that you don't dare show is fear,
Mm-hmm.
and you always keep your red flags up regardless.
Right.
Because, I mean, there's no doubt an entity can pose as a small, innocent child. It can pose as, a soft female voice that's innocent. But
Mhm.
the best way to identify them is listen closely what they say.
Right.
Are they using some type of deception tactics? In all honesty, at the moment, what you feel really inside is greed, and you just feel these red flags going up when encountering this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you just get that impression something's not right here when
Something's off.
encountering. Yeah,
Yeah.
especially when they started asking for blood.
Now, that video, I remember when you uploaded that and they were asking for blood. They were wanting your blood, I remember. And I believe that was the same video. I think you were in the kitchen where there was that, it looked like a head of a creature or something, and it was peeking out and then it pulled back. That was nuts.
Was that on the
That was just, yeah.
steps? Okay, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. hmm That, and it's like, because a person who doesn't experience this, like that, like, when they had asked, and genuinely, again, and when they had asked for blood, like at that point, like where I mean, you were terrified, but like, what do you do in a situation like that? Like knowing that there's a spirit who wants blood in the house, like, I know you stay strong, but
Well, I think the best way to deal with it is understanding what they mean by that and
Mhm.
what are they wanting. I mean, the only way you can, you know, deal with any type of fear. Fear is basically a feeling of the unknown, that stuff that don't make sense. I mean, if you don't know what something is and it's very abnormal, that can cause some fear. But
Yeah.
understanding what it is and doing
hmm
research into it and asking questions during investigations to try to figure it all out and gain some understanding what you're dealing with. I mean, it kind of
Yeah.
helps with that fear of
hmm
dealing with. I have a strong belief that we have a free will, that we have the power of choice. Those
Exactly.
entities can't make me do anything that I don't want to do.
hmm
Now, there are people out there that would probably do what those entities want to do because of a lack of knowledge,
hmm
a lack of understanding in what they're dealing with.
hmm
My next video that's coming out is going to touch on that too. That,
Oh,
yeah,
good. I'm looking
you
very
know,
forward to that. That's awesome. So my next question is, for somebody who, and we were talking, like I know you said, like there are people out there who would listen to these spirits. To kind of touch on that, what advice would you give to someone who is living in a house that's haunted? And like you had before this, no prior knowledge, no prior experience. They had they're watching movies like Paranormal Activity, or like, they see these stuff in Hollywood and they get confused. But what
yeah.
would you give someone as an advice, experience this and how to deal with a situation like this?
Well, after going through what I've gone through, my advice is don't investigate it. Leave it alone.
Leave it alone.
Leave it alone. I mean, that's my advice. And it's kind of troubling to me because some people have contacted me and said that I've inspired them to become paranormal investigators.
Wow. Wow.
Real paranormal activity, and I'm talking real stuff, not stuff that's where there's nothing really there, but I'm talking about real encounters. That's That's
Mm-hmm.
stuff that's really not to be messed with, in my
Right.
opinion. And but see, I didn't realize that when I first started all of this. Now
Mm-hmm.
I'm deep into it,
Yeah.
and I look back and I'm like, I wish I never even picked up that camera and started recording this.
Wow.
But the problem is, and most paranormal enthusiasts who do investigation will tell you this, when you encounter this real activity, there's a side to it that's scary, but there's a side to it that's so amazing. And
Mm.
that amazing part will cause you to become obsessed with it.
Mm.
You become
Wow.
obsessed with doing the investigations. And that's when it becomes dangerous.
Mm. And one of the things I also wanted to say is when you do your investigations, and anybody who's new to your channel or has been a longtime fan will know that you don't condescend these spirits. You talk in a very professional way. Even when it gets out of hand, you keep your composure, you know? And
Yeah.
there was a video that you have done, The Girl in the Window with Tafiella, which
Mm-hmm.
I'm being very sincere. That was very touching because you visited the grave, you gave a prayer. I mean, to me, I mean, that was just one of the most beautiful things. And again, out of all the videos, to me, that was probably on a more positive, when watching your videos, a more positive, a beautiful moment that you
Yeah.
had on that channel because you wanted to help this child's spirit, you wanted to help the family, and just visiting her grave was just one of the most respectable things I've ever seen any investigator has done. So that was just
Yeah. And
wow.
I'll never
Yeah,
forget that's all she said was home.
I know. And you heard it, and you brought it up on the spirit box, and you speeded up the voice, and it's still it really touches the heart. It really does. That was just absolutely amazing. Um,
Yeah, actually, when I was at her grave and
mhm.
I heard home, that was actually a disembodied voice. I wasn't using the spirit box.
Really?
Yeah, that was her voice. I mean, yeah, the only thing I had with me is a couple cameras. But when I captured that, that was not off the spirit box.
Wow. That's just and I actually looked up of her history online after I watched your video. You touched on a lot of things, but it inspired me to want to learn more about her and what had happened, and just such a
Yeah.
heartache. It really was such a terrible heartache. Um, with that question, I wanted to also ask you another question. So in the video, Abby Come Home, the Ghost Children, that there was a lot of spirits, I remember, and this comes a lot in your videos. They always cry for help. They're always asking you for help, and they always say your name. And for you as a human being, and I know I don't know you, but what I can gather, you're a very compassionate, sincere man, very caring. Does it bother you at times when they cry for help and you can't see them, you're only hearing it and you want to do so more, but there's just a limit, like I can't?
Yeah, it is troubling. I mean, you kind of feel like you're standing there looking at a house that's on fire and there's
Yeah.
somebody trapped upstairs that needs help and you don't know how to get to them to save them.
Wow.
And that's what the feeling's like. It's you're kind of in a situation you don't really know what to do to help them.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people that say, well, you need to guide them into the light. Well, the spirits I've come across are not looking for a light.
No.
They're looking for answers, or and a lot of them, it's just like when Rachel asked for help.
Hmm.
She wasn't looking for some light to go into. She was wanting somebody to listen to what happened to her. She wanted to know, the living to know where her story. And after I learned everything about her and pretty much solved the investigation on Rachel, I mean, she pretty much just went on into peace.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that your channel is so well known for is that you just don't communicate with these spirits and just say, okay, that's it for the day. You do your homework. You try to find out their backstory because they do have a story to tell.
Right.
They each have something that they want to get across, and you are there to listen to them, and and again. as I said in the introduction, it's not that you're doing a popularity contest. You're not trying to get attention. There's nothing to gain, but you just want to help them. And that's just incredible. It really is, you know,
Yeah.
really is. Um, how many spirits as of to date are in the Lamb House as a total?
I have no idea, to be honest with you. Some come and go, I
Oh,
mean,
wow. That's
uh, on a very active night, it's hard to tell. I mean, there's so many multiple voices that, during an disembodied voices will change. I mean, I'm talking about voices you hear not even using the spirit box.
oh
I
my God.
mean, yeah, the disembodied voices will sometimes be different voices.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And out of all the spirits in the Lamb House, because I know there's just so many, which would you say would be the most active? Like the one that, like, I know you say they come and go, and there's Shadow Dude, but who would you say is the one that is pretty much consistent?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know all their names,
Mm-hmm.
but you can tell their voices, that you've heard them many times before.
Right.
In the beginning, the most active encounter was with Naomi and the spirits that were concerned about Naomi's situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's Rachel and the spirits that were concerned about Rachel's situation. And, lots of encounters with Hattie, lots of encounters with Edmund. And
Mm-hmm.
but it's like this activity goes in different seasons. And if that makes
Really?
sense,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you'll hear a specific set of voices. And then
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden that stops and you hear another specific set of voices and names. And then it goes on to something different, on to something different. Then it goes back and it's like starting all over again with
Mm-hmm.
those specific voices. It's almost like different seasons.
Wow. And I'm sure that's very overwhelming for you, not just as an investigator, but as a human being, just like I can't keep up with this, I've got so many spirits in this house. It's like this isn't a hotel, you know.
Yeah.
It's like trying to keep up with all of them. Um, one of the videos I just wanted to talk about also was the one where you were in the basement and there was this creature, as I mentioned earlier before, that was tiptoeing across. You had
Yeah.
the camera.
Yeah.
That was another one. So my question for you on that was, because I remember you had also touched on the topic, it could be an imp or it could be like, you were trying to see what it was. It looked like a demon to me. Is that creature still there? Is there a demon still at the Lamb House? Wow.
Yeah. That's something that you don't want to verbally acknowledge while you're in this house and claim it,
Correct.
if that makes any sense. But
Gotcha.
yeah, I'm still dealing with some serious stuff,
Wow.
and this next video that's coming out, I think that people will see the extent of how serious this gets.
Mm.
You know what is kind of troubling with me is, I mean, there's people out there that do paranormal investigations and they make these claims that they're encountering demons and devils and Satan and everything else. And I know from experience, if people have true encounters with demonic entities,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to take it so lightly,
Mm.
if that makes any sense. And I'm
It
not
does.
saying all these people out there are faking stuff. That's not what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that if you really seriously counter demonic, you'll know it.
Yeah.
And you won't want to play with it. You won't want to touch it. You won't want to acknowledge it.
Exactly. I think one of the biggest mistakes people have made, paranormal investigators or not, is provoking these spirits.
Yeah,
It's like edging them on, which you don't do, of course.
no,
But like, and not to like go deeper into this topic, but I think that's the problem is that the more you provoke it and you acknowledge it, and the more you do things that you shouldn't do, it's going to get worse. It's like
Yeah,
kind of like picking at a wound almost,
right.
or you know, not putting a fire out, just letting it burn. Um, okay, so I know you were talking about your next video. My next and last question for you is: are there going to be what are your future projects in the works if you like to announce them?
You know what? I don't plan nothing out ever.
Really?
I
It's all
don't
spur of the
plan.
moment.
It's all spur of the moment. It all depends on the
Cool.
activity. It all depends on what comes up. I mean, I'd go do an investigation on one topic and it completely takes a twist, a complete
Really?
180-degree turn, and these spirits take it to another topic that's totally what I wasn't even going to do the investigation on. So
Oh, wow.
with this, I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. And
Right.
you don't plan things out on, you don't make itinerary plans on how you're going to do an investigation. You
Right.
just pick up the camera and go with it. But
Wow.
future plans, I have no idea. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't know.
It does it get frustrating sometimes? Like you have like I know you say you don't plan things, which is totally understandable. But let's just say, okay, I'm gonna try to do something. I have somewhat of an idea that I want to do today, and then it just takes a totally different turn, and you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing this today.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
that's the way it happens.
Wow.
It's these aren't script. I
No.
don't write this. I mean, it's not something. I mean, every time you pick up that camera and start an investigation, you let the spirits do the script.
Pretty much. Exactly.
You let them take the lead. And I'm not saying take the lead by you following them. I'm talking about taking the lead in the investigation of what they want to talk about. And if we do investigations and we listen to them and go with what they're talking about, they'll talk a lot more.
Wow. And
But if,
Mhm. I'm
but
sorry,
if
go
you're
ahead.
in it just for the capture and you don't follow up on what they're saying,
Mhm.
I mean, they're not going to talk anymore.
Yeah, and I remember in one of the videos you've done, which I was, you were on the phone with an investigator, and he said, "Don't use the new equipment. Use the old equipment. You'll capture more footage better that way." And
Mhm.
ever since then, I think you've been able to get more footage and more recordings. That's just wow.
Yeah, I use both. I use top of
Yeah.
the line
Hmm.
cameras, HD, 4K, GoPro 6.0, and a cheap little Android. This is what I do my
Wow.
walkarounds with this.
Yes.
But I have all these other cameras going that are more high tech,
Right.
and your audio, one camera, it has a filter where it filters out all background noise, and something has to be close if you're going to capture something with that camera. But then I have, like, this camera is more digital with digital recording on it.
Mhm.
So you got to go through all of your equipment, and I've found that different pieces of equipment picks up different things.
Wow. And I know just a quick question. Do you think when you walk around the Lamb House with the cameras, do you think the spirits are wondering, like, what is that? Like, what is he holding? Are they curious to know, like,
Now,
what's this?
I think they know. They know.
They
If you ever
know.
watched The Undertaker's Garage,
Yeah.
Adam was up there, and because of, I think it was a female or a male called me the F word. And then Adam goes, "Is there anything you can say besides calling Kent the F word?" And then that spirit goes, "Go F your camera." So
Jeez.
they're aware of cameras,
They're aware of cameras.
And the last video I released, or the video before last, Nightmares in the Lamb House, I believe it is.
Hmm.
You know, when you see these apparitions, you got to have your camera there immediately at the right place at the right time because they move so fast.
Hmm.
But in that Nightmares in the Lamb House, when I was laying in bed, when I was asleep, and the TV woke me up, I
Hmm.
kept hearing blood witch, and the music was loud and it was annoying and it woke me up. I'm like, well, what's this? Because I was watching Stargate SG1 on Netflix,
Mm-hmm.
And I hit the thing where it just plays all night just to drown out all the sounds that you hear in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden there's some show on about blood witches. Well, I'm like, what on earth? I'm half asleep, I'm like, and then I heard, I recorded that, it's saying blood witch, and I heard these disembodied voices.
Mm.
Well, that creeped me out. So I turned on the closet light in the bedroom. I'm like, yeah, this closet light's going to stay on tonight.
I agree with you.
And I sat there in silence recording, and I kept hearing, the faint voices, and I was capturing EVPs. Well, I was so tired. I set the camera down next to me, and I'm kind of dozing off,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just starting to doze, and I feel the bed nudge, and I look up, and there's a shadow apparition right at the end of my bed. I slowly lift the camera up, and I didn't think I was going to capture it. I think, okay, this thing's going to disappear. I got record going, and for a couple seconds, it was just standing there, and then it took off really fast.
Wow.
And that's mind-boggling. That I'm kind of like, well, why is this thing just standing there? It knows I have the camera on it.
Yeah.
And it was like wiggling its hips back and forth. But then, and this is going to be in the next upcoming video, not long after that, another shadow apparition was standing on the chair. This is with all lights on in the bedroom. I was watching that show, the Blood Witch show, to see what it was about one night. Well, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to watch it. I mean, are these spirits trying to tell me something? Obviously, they switched it to this show for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, that thing appears. I grabbed the camera, but right when I got the camera up on it, that thing jumps back in the chair and whoa! I mean, it just takes off. I thought it was jumping towards me.
Wow.
And I'm like, it's very, very rare.
Oh my God.
To see these apparitions like that back to back, that clear, and capturing them. That's very rare. Capturing apparitions in this house is very rare,
Right.
as it is. But within a space of 3 nights, that same shadow apparition shows up and it takes off really fast. I mean, I'm like, all right, they are trying to tell me something.
It's and it's when you said that, it seems to me from watching the videos, it seems they're becoming more bolder. They're coming more. I mean, wow. I mean, almost looking like they're leaping at you because I remember there was the shadow figure of the woman. I believe that she had a child on her back, and she was like kind of like I don't want to. I'm not trying to be rude, but like not like whoosh you away, but like her hand was up and down.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like they're just the more videos you're doing, the more clearly they're trying to come into to speak with you. That's just wow.
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with what I understand now.
Yeah.
And I based the investigations on what they're telling me.
Yeah.
And that's caused this activity to get even more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That is just wow, that is crazy. All right. Well, Mr. Burris, thank you so much for being on my podcast and being
Kevin,
my first guest. You are awesome. Thank you so much for your time. All right, guys. You heard it here, Mr. Burris of the Ghosts of Carmel Maine on the YouTube channel. Please check him out and support him. He is an awesome. I'm lost for words right now. That left me speechless after you were talking to me about that. I am looking so forward for your next video. All right. You have a wonderful day, and thank you so much, Mr. Burris.
All right. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it.
Take care.